Check it out, guys. It's a vacuum cleaner. Oh, sorry. Easily amused. So I am in Alabama, and I wanted to tell you about a field trip I went on today because it was a good field trip. And I talked about this when I went to Atlanta, but whenever I go to a new town, although Huntsville and Madison are hardly new towns for me, I like to scope out the local pagan scene and check out shops and do the pagan night out thing if I can, etc. Just because I like, as introverted and reclusive as I can be, I do like to get out and meet people, although not necessarily on a particularly profound level. Anyway, so it turns out that since last I was here, Huntsville has developed a very small pagan occult scene. Not really a scene. What I mean to say is that a shop actually opened here, which is just mystical. I don't know. It actually opened this month, and it's not so much like a pagan or Wiccan shop so much as a hoodoo shop. The two women who are the proprietors, although there's at least one other employee who I met, are they're hoodoo practitioners. They're trained through the hoodoo shop in San Francisco, which is Kat Ironwood's thing, who I met when I was in San Francisco, and she's a really cool lady. Anyway, really, really tiny little store. I wasn't sure I was in the right place. I found it on Witchbox, and it shares a building with this realtor, and you have to park in the back, and it doesn't really have a sign outside, and anyway, the instructions said to go in through the middle door, and it was all very occult in every sense of the word. And anyway, it was quite a bit smaller than my first college dorm room. Maybe 8 by 8. I mean, it was really small. It was probably the size of my office at home. And they'd painted the walls bright purple. And it was primarily herbs and oils, which is what I would expect in a hoodoo shop. But anyway, the women who I met were really, really kind. And it's actually cool. Whether you agree with this line of thinking or not isn't really the point. But one of the women who owns the shop, Nancy, is one of the main proponents of what she calls Trinitarian Wicca, which is many people know as Christian Wicca. Not really interested in what everyone thinks about that. This isn't the place. But it was kind of cool getting to be in her shop and interact. Anyway, I hung out. I chatted with them about the candles that they make, and when they'd set up shop and that sort of thing. So it was pretty cool. The kind of place that only takes cash. And the sort of place, like, it's so small, you can't just go in and browse and be inconspicuous. You can't help but engage with everyone else who's in the shop. Anyway, it was a very welcome change from what I'm used to when I'm in Madison, which is pretty much nothing. It's pretty much, this area is just devoid, from what I can tell, of any kind of community, any kind of magical or pagan community. So to have a small hoodoo shop, of all things, open up was pretty cool. I did make a purchase just because, honestly, just because it was cool to be able to do so in Madison. And it's a small business starting out. I think it's good to throw some business their way. So I just got a couple of skeleton keys, and I got one of the candles that they make, just because they were making them while I was there, and I thought they were really cool. So it's the kind of thing that, licorice, the kind of thing that you know, I've done myself and I can do myself, but it's cool to have something that's made by someone else. It has different sorts of energies attached to it, and it's just cool seeing how people do things differently. And I love the homemade label, and you can't see it through the plastic real well, but it's coated in herbs and etc. And sealed on with an additional layer of wax. It smells really, really strongly. Definitely licorice. I can't really tell what else. And then the little skeleton keys. Got a thing for skeleton keys. So anyway, that was pretty cool. I also, down the road, which this place has apparently been there for like 20 years, and I just didn't find it. It was a kind of a new age, they billed themselves as a gift shop, but they also had a couple of massage therapists and like a past life reader and a couple of tarot readers and stuff like that. And it was primarily I'd say primarily a gem and mineral shop. And as you guys know, like, I'm not big into like the magic of things like crystals and rocks, although since I posted, you guys remember I posted that video about like questions that I had about the ethics of crystal mining and purchasing. Since I made that video, I've done a lot of reading and talking to people who are into that, not so much for my own personal use, but just because I like to know where other people are coming from. I've been watching a whole lot of Sami's videos. That's Witch on the Rocks. I know a lot of you guys are subscribed to her, but she's really cool. And it's funny, I like her a lot because I think we have a lot in common in terms of our personalities, even though I think our interests lie in different places. But anyway, I've learned a lot from her, and even though I'm still like not necessarily super interested in using crystals and stones in magical practice, I have become really intrigued by them, although I do have a couple of hang-ups about a couple of different things. But anyway, it was cool being in a shop and getting to look at all of the stones that you know, I've seen people with in videos and that sort of thing, and actually getting to touch them and hold them. And anyway, so just kind of a fun day. And then afterwards, I went to a local coffee shop here that I'm quite fond of. I sort of fell in love with them this past November because they were open on Thanksgiving, which is pretty much the key to my heart in terms of coffee. Anyway, I went there and I read and worked with tarot, which I've been on a tarot kick. I told you in my last video, I've dubbed this the Summer of Tarot, and I have sort of embarked on a course of self-study. Anyway, I had a question that I was hoping some of you guys could answer, because I know a lot of you guys read tarot, and I was wondering, for those of you who read tarot for people over the phone or over the internet, how does that work? Because I know when I read for other people, I don't read for myself, but when I read for other people, thus far it's been really important for me to be in the room with them, just because I can get a lot out of things like body language, and it's how I get a sense of people. I have a much harder time reading people across media, like the internet or the telephone, although I think I could do it over the telephone maybe, but especially like cold readings over the internet, like if someone emails you or sends you a YouTube message or something and asks for a reading, and maybe you've never even seen them before and you do a reading for them, like how does that work? Do you feel like that's just as accurate as when you're in the room with someone? Are there different ways that you go about doing that? I'm really curious because I've been looking at sites like the American Tarot Association and some of those more organized groups for tarot. They have resources like the free readers sites where you can join for free and you can get practice reading for people over the internet. And it seems like a cool idea, although I've never read for anyone that way, and I'm not really clear on the mechanics. So if anyone would care to share their personal experiences or elaborate on that, it would be much appreciated, because it's kind of a shot in the dark for me at this point. And it's not something I've tried at this point, but something I've considered, and I know a lot of tarot readers at least read over the phone. Anyway, that has been my day thus far. I spent the last 3 days mostly going to this coffee shop and reading about tarot. It's actually been kind of obsessive. Also awesome. My friend Allie, who I mentioned in the last video, a lazy witch, that's her username on YouTube, she's been doing tarot stuff with me too, and we've talked about, she runs a tarot study group in Charlotte, which is where I live right now, and she and I have gotten together several times, and we practice on each other, and we sort of, unbeknownst to each other, started reading the same book, so we've talked about kind of going through that together. But anyway, so I've got real life people to practice with, and anyway, I'm rambling now, but wanted to share my little adventure. I'll put the links to the shops that I visited down below, and that is all. I hope you guys are well, and see you later.